Long before the thunder and soars, there was a hill. A quiet hill in the land of Uz, where sheep grazed in the gold of morning, and a man sang softly to them. He wasn't a priest, he wasn't a king. Just a man who rose with the sun and knelt before the sky. Not out of fear, but because it felt right. I was still in heaven then, or at least on its edge. I had not yet spoken the questions that would exile me. I had not yet been given a name they use like poison. I was still light, still belonging, and I watched the earth, not to corrupt it, but to remember why it had been made at all. Most men, they sleep through grace, but Job looked at the stars and understood, not with his head, with his soul. I don't know when it started. The watching, the caring. He'd carry bread to orphans without waiting for thanks. He'd bury birds that fell from the sky. I saw him kiss his wife's hand and wipe the eyes of his oldest son when the boy felt shame. What man does that when no one's watching? Only one I ever saw. I spoke of him once in heaven. Yes, I said, have you considered Job? But not like they wrote it. Not with venom. I asked like a friend, speaking of a painting he couldn't look away from. I asked like a son showing a father something worth saving. God looked at me. Of course I have. His voice thundered low, like distant drums before war. He fears me. He obeys. He is loyal. That word. Loyal. Like Job was some hound trained to fetch divinity slippers. I said nothing, but the fire behind my eyes stirred. There was more to love than obedience. There had to be. So I asked what no one had dared before. Is it really love, if it's never tested? And with those 9 words, I sealed my fate. They called it a wager, a test. Some even now call it divine drama. But I know what it really was. Permission. God gave it. Not with glee, not with malice, but with that calm, cold certainty that scares even angels. And so it began. But understand this, I did not touch him. I did not raise a finger against his children. I did not call wind to shatter his home. I did not strike his flesh or blacken his crops. Others did that. Servants of divine allowance. The heavens themselves became the hammer, and I watched it all fall. They say, Job's pain was proof of his righteousness, that his refusal to curse God made him holy. But holiness is quiet in the face of grief. Job didn't quote scripture when he buried his children. He screamed, tore his robe, threw dust in his hair, and beat his chest until it bruised. His prayers were not elegant. They were ugly, trembling things that clawed at silence. And I sat in the shadows. I listened to each one. One night, the fire by his ruined house had gone cold. His friends had left. His wife had wept herself into silence. Job sat alone on the ground, body torn, skin blistered, soul unraveling. And I came, not in glory, not with horns or flame, just as a man, a traveler. Cloaked in dusk, I did not speak. I simply sat beside him. He looked at me, his face half lit by the dying embers. You remind me of someone, he said, but I don't know who. I smiled barely. And you remind me of something I can never return to. We sat in silence for hours. When he finally slept, I touched his shoulder, not with power, not to curse, but with sorrow. Then I left before dawn. That was the last time I saw him. He passed the test, they say. God restored him, gave him more children, greater wealth, days full of sunlight. But no one talks about his eyes, the way he looked past everything, through it, as if always searching for someone who was gone. They don't mention how he paused at every firelight, like he expected someone to be there again, silent, watching. They don't talk about the way he stopped singing. Centuries passed, kingdoms fell. My name changed, first to Satan, the adversary, then to devil, serpent, accuser, morning star, fallen. But I have worn them all like tattered robes. They say I lost. That Job story proved I was wrong, but they forget. I never wanted him to fail. I wanted to believe in him. I needed one soul to prove that love wasn't just borrowed loyalty from a fearful heart. And Job did that. Not for God. For me. So why am I cast down? Because I asked a question heaven didn't want to hear answered. Because I saw beauty in a man, not power. Because I wanted truth, even if it shattered paradise. Because I broke the rules not out of rebellion, but out of hope. You want to know the truth about Job? He never cursed God, but he also never forgave him. He accepted restoration, but not comfort. He lived a full life, but never again a whole one. And in the end, when he died, do you know what the angels found, clenched in his hands? Ash, still there, after all those years. I did not win. I did not lose. I simply learned that sometimes the truest love is the one that watches someone fall and never dares reach out because the gods are watching. You've heard his side. Now you've heard mine. What you believe is no longer my concern. But if ever you find yourself weeping in the dark, staring at the firelight, wondering if someone is sitting there beside you, you're not wrong.